Hello, I want to continue my discussion on theories on motivation. And in this part, I want to look at the next theory, and that is the concept of theory X and theory Y. I'm sure you have seen the work of Douglas McGregor uh, on the human side of enterprise. And according to his work, what it did is to give us two views that managers looks at employees. So it looks at the concepts of human nature as applied to work. And according to him, there are two views of employees, the theory X and the theory Y. And just to briefly uh, indicate or show you what theory X is, according to Douglas McGregor, the theory X management or view of employees is where the average person dislike work and will avoid work if possible. And because of this dislike, workers, how do you make workers how do you motivate employees? How do you get something out of employees? So you must either use force, control, direct, or threaten, or fear, or some kind of punishment, or even use of money, that is salary, as a way of trying to motivate these employees so that you can achieve the organizational goals. So if you think about it, the theory X are those employees who look at work as being inherently distasteful, and therefore they typically will avoid responsibility, and the only way to incentivize is to use money or some kind of close supervision, where again you could think about in terms of fear and in terms of force as a way of motivating those employees. The other contrast to this theory is the theory Y. And in theory Y, we look at employees who are basically the opposite. In other words, these are employees who like work, they enjoy working, they like, or you can use recognition as a way of motivating these employees. The employees are self directed, they seek responsibility, they're committed to work. So, it's just a summary of what theory X and theory Y is. If you look at this slide, you'll see that the theory X employees and the theory Y employees, and it gives you an indication on how you can lead these groups of people. Because again, I don't know whether theory X, again, there's some truth to it. We have the theory X employees. So think about your workplace and see whether you see the theory X employees, and also think about at your workplace and think about the theory Y employees. So if those employees exist, again, the challenge for us is to be able to identify the theory X employees and identify the theory Y employees. And then what can you do as a leader? What can you do as a manager to try to incentivize the theory X employees? And what are some of other tools that you can use again to also motivate the theory Y? Because remember, the goal is to make sure that all employees are motivated so that they can do more or better, what is best of them. So therefore you'll find that money will be a clear example. So the increase in wages or the increase in salaries will be one way of incentivizing the theory X, and the use of close supervision will be one way again of making sure the theory X are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The theory why it means you must empower these employees, you must give them more responsibility because they like responsibility. These are people who, sometimes you give them freedom, so they don't need that close supervision because, again, they're committed to the workplace. So it's very important for us to understand that yes, if these people exist, then what can you do as a manager to try to get the best of these employees? So I'll be looking forward, or I'll just try to summarize the next set of videos, which is the next theory, is which is the basic expectancy theory. And again, this is a theory where we look at the reward you provide to employees for the job that they do. So, and we use this theory mostly in when it comes to setting up some kind of reward or a compensation scheme for employees. And the thing that we don't understand, or we try to use this theory to understand, is to see whether employees have the ability to do something and how they perceive those those rewards that you provide. So we look at the perceived effort, and then we look at the probability that they'll be able to achieve the objective or the task. So the perception of, so in other words, clearly you basically look at this. So as an employee, you ask yourself, what are my chances, for example, of getting the job done if I put forth the necessary effort? So that's a probability issue. And then the next part is, what reward do I value? So how do you value the reward? So, and then of course the perceived performance and reward probability. What are my chances of getting the reward I value if I satisfactorily complete the job? So if you value the reward and you have the ability to complete the task, then of course you probably go towards the goal. You're going to be incentivized or motivated. But if you think that the chance of you getting the reward is remote, or you don't have the ability to do the job, then of course setting up a reward or a compensation becomes useless for the organization. So it's a theory that we use in human resource management when it comes to setting or identifying what kind of reward system that you're going to give to employees. You want to make sure that yes, the employees have the ability to do the job, and they also value the reward that you, so you're going to give an appropriate reward, or you're going to set appropriate reward towards achieving a particular task. And think about sales. So if you work in sales, let's say selling cars, for example, and your job is to sell 10 cars, and if you sell 10 cars, you receive $2,000. If that's the case, then what employees will be looking at is their probability to be able to sell 10 cars. Is it possible to sell 10 cars in a week, if that was the goal for the week? And the question is, how do they value the $2,000? Is the $2,000 worth the effort? If it is worth the effort and they have the ability to achieve that goal, then they'll go towards trying to sell the 10 cars to achieve the $2,000. But they feel that they don't have the effort, or the effort is not worth it, is not worth the reward. Then in that case, then of course, setting that kind of standard defeats the purpose of being an incentive or a motivator for the employees. And then, of course, the other theories, which I'm going to summarize in my next video, will be some other techniques that we can use. But just keep in mind, there's other theories we can look at. And for example, we look at the MBO, the goal setting theory, which again is being used today, where we look at the use of like those sales targets, for example, sell 10 cars in a week or in a month. And so again, we use those as a way of motivating employees. But just keep in mind that when you set those goals, you want to make sure you apply the SMART model. And of course, we have reinforcement theory, Again, you have seen this, and when we're growing up, when you're kids, you'll see your parents, for example, give you some incentive for maybe being a good kid, and again, if you did something wrong, of course, there'll be some kind of punishment to try to extinguish that kind of behavior. So the same theory is the same reasoning. Again, this is borrowed from psychology, so the same thing that we also apply this to management or to business. Then there's equity theory, and then next I'm going to pick up by looking at other job oriented motivational techniques. And a good example of this is the looking at the job content and the Hasbach two factor theory. It gives us some perspective by looking at the job content and the job environment. So having some autonomy, giving feedback to your employees, changing the variety of the tasks. Instead of employees doing the same thing all the time, you want to have a job where they can do different tasks. So you vary the tasks, and by so doing, you kill the boredom and you make the job interesting. So the job content or the job enrichment or the design, if you change the job, then of course it makes the job interesting. And I just have a small picture, if you can see on the slide here, basically showing you how the designing the job, you make it more interesting. Instead of you doing the same thing all the time, you could say, for example, here you're the one driving the truck. Then next time the skill changes, you'll be now the one filling with a shovel, and next time you're the one with a wheelbarrow, and so on and so on. So by redesigning the job to involve different responsibilities, it's just one way of making the job interesting. The other one is, for example, job rotation, which basically clearly shows this. The job rotation, you work in one department today, or in this week, next week maybe you work in a different department, and by so doing you are able to learn different skills or different areas, and again by so we able to reduce the boredom and we make the job more interesting. So this is just some of the other ways we can motivate employees. And think about even teamwork, and open communication. So by using teams, for example, the workplace, again, we make the job more interesting. So long as again we have a culture of teamwork and we provide the necessary resources and we provide the empowerment and we make teams to be a success at the workplace. You have an open door policy where again open communication, uh, employees are able to air their views again without being punished, whatever, from that perspective. If you do so, then of course that is also another motivator, or a motivational element that you bring to the workplace, and you instill this in your employees. So I hope that you find this information helpful, and I want you to continue, especially in those theories. Look at all the theories and see how these theories can be applied to the workplace. And lastly, I want to mention just something different from the theories by themselves, and by just saying that, when it comes to motivating employees, let's think about, just even a thank you note. Thanking employees for the job that they do is critical, goes a long way. Listening to employees also goes a long ways. Giving employees a feedback on how they're doing the work and provide them opportunities for improvement. Again, that's very important. Those rewards again becomes an incentive. Just allowing employees to provide input in making decisions. You listen to them and you ask for the input is also important. Giving employees opportunities for training becomes important. And again, anytime you achieve a goal in the organization, it's also a good thing to do is to celebrate the achievement. So there are so many ways you can incorporate all these issues at the workplace just to make sure that again the work becomes something enjoying and people will like what they do. And again, this is a learning process which is along the way, you have to make several improvements to make sure that employees understand and they do their best. So I look forward to our next chapter, which will be on chapter 11, and that will take us to a different issue. Thank you.